mean, these are characters that we've seen since the birth of cinema. So there's a sort of familiar touchstone, and yet each time we come back to them, it's something new, it's something exciting, it's a challenge for each filmmaker that comes to these movies. Like, how do we make this fresh? How do we make this bigger, more exciting? And as the technology advances and the scale of our cinemas get bigger and bigger, you know, we seek to kind of fill that. So I think that's what keeps audiences coming back, is like, how is this familiar character that we've known for almost 100 years, what are they up to now?
I could listen to you say the word cinema every day.
Cinema.
Oh, God. I think that's true. I think it's absolutely true. They're staples, right? Like, they're staples. I recently went to Japan, and I couldn't believe how herald these characters still are. Like, but they're also promoting cheeseburgers and stuff. I was like, that's Godzilla with a cheeseburger. Like, there'd be Godzilla hats, and like, I think for me, because I mean, if you travel the world, you realize that they have such a global reach, that they belong to everyone, and that people really love. It's like a language within itself, like that it brings people together. So I think that that's a big reason why people keep going and keep wanting them to be made, because it is a connecting fiber between people around the world, honestly.
Yeah, they're beloved and they're literally larger than life, which is cinema itself.
Yeah. Panic, fear, codependency.
Well, Dr. Andrews technically brings them together, is because now in this movie, Dr. Andrews is now the sort of, you know, boss of Monarch and boss of the Titans, and how to control and deal with them and interface with humans, kind of thing. And so she picks the team, and I think she's, I mean, she must have a kind of eccentric streak, because she assembles quite a
people who really shouldn't be there.
Quite a crew. But she knows what she's doing, and I think it betrays her inner interesting misfit weirdo, because it's a band of misfit weirdos, which I think is delightful and makes it really like.
And also family, because she sees that her daughter is going through some kind of connect. Like, I think it's the story of the mother with the teenage daughter around the world that is relatable, right? Like,
I don't know how to connect to my child.
I don't know how to get to my child. She's being incredibly. There's something going on. Go to your uncles. Like, so, but I think it's that you see. That her child is in duress, and she wants to figure this out, and she sees that it's directly
do anything, and she knows that the best people are, you know, an outsider from Monarch, but she knows to be the smartest person around about the issues, because Bernie is, yes, he's the conspiracy guy, but he's the conspiracy guy who's right. And so she's taking a risk, but it's a smart one. And he's a vet.
I didn't think she'd say it. She said it. But also, you guys' relationship as well. Like, the history
it
between.
Is in the story. It's that we knew each other from way back.
We knew each other at college.
Which we literally do.
We literally knew each other at college.
We literally were at college together.
And just you know, knows the right person to call when Kong has a toothache, which is a smart move, and then somehow invites me on the mission.
Yeah, somehow.
In case there's another toothache.
And she trusts us with her child, you know, because we're also learning, like, how to care for this family, this new family.
It's a weird family.
And that seems to be the through line of this movie, about, like, how to find your family, how to find your roots, what family looks like. It doesn't always have to be conventional. We were talking about, like, each day going to work, like, just because sometimes we didn't know what the sets would look like until we got there. And so you go on and you're walking through these caverns, and you're seeing, like, the light. Remember when they poured the lights through? Oh my God. Like, and you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, so you are standing in a sense of wonder.
There was a lot of stuff that, I mean, we talk a lot about the CGI and a lot about, because obviously Godzilla and Kong, we're never seeing them, unfortunately, but everything else you are kind of seeing. But, you know, it's really happening.
The feathers, remember all the feathers? Like, you're walking.
Feathers in the jungle.
Feathers. There's a scene where there's a water. We go to these old, what would they be called?
Ruins.
The ruins. We go to the ruins, and there is a water element where it runs through all the ruins, and we're following it, and that was real. Like, we're really following this water going through, like, it
on
was
a giant stage as well. They recreated this jungle with the ruins and running. I mean, we were running the full length of this enormous.
How the cameras would go in and out. I mean, that is a testimony to Adam. Like, that is such Wingardian stuff. Like, it's so him. and you're on this amusement park ride with you know, your fellow castmates and friends, and it's like you are going through it because he's so excited about it. He's thought about it in such a way, and he is trying to unveil it to you the same way that he's unveiling it to us. And it's so incredible to see a filmmaker that is that much of a fan and is that excited every day about what he gets to showcase. So,
and also, like, I think that the truth about a lot of acting is that you feel what you want the audience to feel, right? So if it's if the sort of overriding word of the thing that the experience that you want an audience to have is fun, then we all know, even when we're playing distress, even when we're playing serious, even when we also know that if we're not having fun, they're not going to be having fun.
I think a sense of awe as well. Like, I found that on most of the sets, and I think that's certainly part of Trapper's vibe. Is just like the awesome majesty of nature and the natural world. And
bit as well.
yeah, you know that it is. That was, but you know, just definitely feeling that. And I think, you know, there's a sense of watching these movies, especially in something like IMAX in the biggest format possible, where it's just awesome.
Yeah.
I'd definitely go Baby Kong.
Baby Kong,
Baby
without
Kong,
a doubt.
without
Because
a doubt.
reptiles are very
They can be
tricky.
tricky.
More of a Baby Kong guy. Like, he can hold his bottle.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
weirdly, my daughter is super into the idea of Baby Godzilla. She talks about Baby
Really?
Godzilla. She's made up a whole Baby Godzilla character. She's like, that's much more interesting to her.
Okay.
Wow. I don't know if I could do a Baby Godzilla. That's just too much. Like, no. He's Kong all the way.
Kaylee.
Hey, I was gonna say
100%. Kaylee is saving humanity. I mean, without question.
Kaylee all the way. I felt like even in the movie, my character feels safer with her. It's just like Kaylee without a doubt.
Even her adopted mother feels safe.
No, seriously, it's Kaylee, man. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm definitely more Godzilla. And I'm just talking about thermostat, okay? Because like Godzilla likes to be cold, but then when Godzilla wants to be radioactive, they can be. I likes to isolate sometimes in a coliseum. I do that. You know what I mean? Like, likes teamwork, but can go without it. You know what I mean?
Actually, the way you're describing everything, I suddenly relate to Godzilla.
Like,
More Godzilla.
Yeah,
I think that isolating in the Coliseum is really,
it's just what
it's a good place to.
And also, when I come into a
quiet time.
town, I usually try to destroy it. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the comparisons are plentiful for me. What about you, Dan?
I have to say Kong, I suppose. Just, you know,
To be different.
unwanted body hair. That's it.
And that's all you need.
That's all you
That's
need.
all you need.
Yeah.
There it is.
I mean, my best memory was probably Brian's reaction to the Dead Tree Forest every day.
I wasn't really a fan of the rainforest. Like, okay, like, it's beautiful. We get that. It's lots of oxygen.
Incredible.
We get that as well. But the ride there, first of all, was dangerous because, like, okay, so you don't know who you are until you get an email from production that's about croc alerts, right? Like, not alligators, but croc alerts, right? And so the animation is literally just the top of a croc's head, and then, like, in big, bold letters, there's more than meets the eye. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And then you see this body underneath the water that is of this monstrous, crazy, like, reptile. And then when you're driving there, there's cliffs that are right there, like, at any wrong turn or twig. can knock
Lots
you
of
off the cliff.
signs. Don't
Lots of
walk.
signs, yeah.
Crocodiles.
Also, what's crazy about it is that Australians are so unbothered by all of this. Like, they're just so unbothered. Like, so there's also an animal called a
Spiders the
cassowary.
size of
There's a
Dan.
cassowary, which is a mixture between a velociraptor, a peacock, and an ostrich. And then it has claws that are the size of, like, that can rip
like,
you apart. And people thought this was the cutest thing in the world. As a matter of fact, one day we were leaving, my driver decided to stop for a cassowary crossing, right? Like, there was cassowary crossing with their babies, and he rolled my window down. I was like, look at that, look at the baby, they're just babies. Look at that. And I'm like, I will kill you. Like, what are you doing? Like, so most of the reactions from Bernie in this movie are actually really me, because, like, it was terrifying. Like, it was
Gimpy plant.
The
Yeah.
gimpy
There's a
plant?
tree that wants to kill you as well.
There's a tree
It's
that
not
wants
just animals.
It's nicknamed the suicide plant or something? Because it has these tiny little hairs in the leaves, and if it falls on you and it gets into your skin...
Even if you brush past it.
You would rather commit suicide than endure the pain.
It has 1,000 tiny little hooks. So if you brush past it, they hook into you, and then you go like this because you think you've touched something, and then the more you rub it, the more it gets in, and the more it itches. Adrenalizing.
Punk rock. Fun times like you've never seen before.
Family. Connection.
Neon.
Eggplant.
It feels great to be back for the second movie. My role is going to show such a great part in this movie. I think in the beginning of the movie, she's struggling a little bit, where she belongs, where her home is. She feels a little lost. Something feels out of her control. And then she makes that connection with herself and when she finds her people. I don't remember, but I remember Kong being the same exact way with Gia. He feels lost as well, but he's trying to find where he's from and where his people are, and he's trying to find his family. Because they both have the same personal experiences. They both need someone to find, and they're both looking for that connection. I think because she has meaning in the end of her journey. Her mom knows who she is, and she knows who she is. She knows that she is the only person that can bring that connection with these two worlds together, and she knows she has to do it. So she has to stay brave for that reason, and she just does it. Oh gosh, nature was so beautiful there. The weather was perfect, the trees, the nature was so great. Acting there was just probably my favorite part in general, but I loved running around with the cast, and that's probably one of my favorite memories. When going back, I felt very confident because Adam was going to be there. So I knew that he would help me through any acting journey I had. You know, if he had a vision, he would tell me exactly what he wanted, and he would make it so clear. And so I just followed and acted according to what Adam wanted. I think Baby Kong, because I think that I wouldn't be sure how to take care of Godzilla. I don't know how to communicate with him, but yeah, probably that. I think the most fun part was traveling, seeing new places and different things that I've never been to before. That was such a great new experience for me. I think I would say it's an amazing, heartwarming journey, and I think that they would connect with the movie as well. I think the emoji with the eyeglasses, and probably the monkey emoji, and the lizard emoji.
I think one of my secret weapons as a director is I made a lot of, kind of mental notes when I was a kid of what I wanted to see and experience in movies if I was ever given a chance to direct. And one of the things that I was really focused on as a kid was, the type of Godzilla films that I always wanted to see. Like I just love the sequences where the monsters are interacting with each other. I love all the little allegiances they have. I like the friendships, like Mothra and Godzilla have their sort of thing, and Anguirus and Godzilla, they have their own little understandings. And so as a filmmaker, I wanted to really kind of fulfill the wishes that I kind of created in myself when I was 10, when I watched these movies, because I just know that if I felt this way as a kid, that there's lots of kids now that feel the same. And so, even though this is a movie that's meant to be enjoyed, for adults and children, if you're adult, hopefully the movie makes you feel like a kid, and if you're a kid, hopefully the movie makes you feel like an adult. That's the sweet spot, and that's what I'm trying to hit. Well, there's quite a bit different in this Godzilla. I mean, Godzilla has to go through an entire evolutionary process to kind of prepare himself for this battle. And in a lot of ways, like I think the concept of characters evolving and kind of prepping for like a major conflict and having to change themselves in order to adapt to be able to take on a formidable adversary is kind of inspired by the Shaw Brothers films of the 70s, especially, you know, some of the 80s ones as well. Like, I took a lot of inspiration from that kind of martial arts structure where, you know, hero fights villain, is, you know, defeated and has to, you know, pull himself together and learn new talents and abilities in order to, you know, take him down. Like Clan of the White Lotus is one of my favorite movies of all time, and you know that movie really features that kind of vibe really strongly. You know, so you know, Godzilla. It was important to me that we give him a new look for this film because it's a fun thing as a Godzilla fan to see different iterations of him through the years, but I didn't want that to just be a random thing, you know, like to me, like it is fun that we're gonna sell toys about this movie, but that's not what we're creating these things for. So I wanted it to be story driven, and so the concept of Godzilla evolving was something that was always a major thrust of the story. And you know, pink's my favorite color, so naturally it kind of went in that direction. But there's a story reason why he actually goes, you know, his energy goes pink in this movie, so that's exciting. With Kong's always a character that interfaces with the humans. He's always got, you know, the human story is always very tightly intertwined with Kong's story in pretty much every past iteration up till now. And so the concept of evolving Kong using, you know, with his interface with the humans, you know, like with this mechanized arm and stuff, was something that was, again, another one of the concepts that were developed right out the gate. You know, just it's like if we can make a movie that's crazy enough to justify Kong having a giant mechanical arm, then we've accomplished a lot here. And so that's what I love about the MonsterVerse too. It started out as 2014 Godzilla, very grounded, all the technology is very grounded, and slowly, similar in the way that the Showa era films of Godzilla, you know, amped things up and went into a more exciting, you know, colorful sci-fi psychedelic direction. That's sort of what we're doing now too. Godzilla over the years has had lots of main nemesis villains, you know, like Destroya and Ghidorah, but Kong has never had, you know, a main villain. And so that's where Scar King comes in. He's very much the anti-Kong. And what's exciting about Scar King as a villain is that he's not a straightforward monster. Like, in other words, you know, a lot of the monsters battle each other based on their sort of animal instincts that they have. The Scar King's closer to a human in the sense that his intentions are evil. And normally these monsters, you know, for better or worse, you can't necessarily say their intentions are bad. They're just in conflict with planet Earth or Godzilla himself. In this case, you know, the Scar King's actually a bad guy. And so in that sense, like, he's kind of cool too, because he's sort of continuing the legacy that these films always have. There's always an environmental edge. There's always a man versus nature edge. And instead of having to literally have man conflicting with the monsters, the Scar King is actually a surrogate for man, and we're able to say all those things, but in a 300-foot tall package. Zuko's the heart of the film. You know, we learn more about Kong through Zuko than we do even, you know, from Kong doing anything else. I think he's sort of a reflection of the way probably Kong was when he was young himself. And, you know, I think on the surface, Zuko comes off like this cute little, you know, almost Baby Yoda thing. But like the way I would describe him is, you know, he's like Baby Yoda if Baby Yoda would eat the flesh off of your face. You know, it's, you know, he's a little scrapper. He's a survivor. and there's a lot of complexity with him as a character. And yeah, he's the heart and soul of the movie, though. You know, this is a film that's meant to be seen on the biggest screen possible. We designed it, you know, with you know, all the major effect sequences are shot in 1:90 IMAX aspect ratio. And so it's almost an hour's worth of footage, you know, if you see it on the big screen. Scale is always the main thing. I mean, these movies, there's nothing bigger, you know, like you don't have characters that are this big in any other film, and it's really a fun, you know, thing to play with. And, you know, there's only so many ways you can create a giant 300-foot monster, and most of that is going to require full CG animation. And so a lot of this film, in some ways, as a filmmaker myself, I have to approach it as though I am making a hyper-realistic animated movie. With that said, we still have, you know, a fantastic story with our human cast, and it's very important where we can to put them in real locations, because, you know, like I said, so much of the film has to be done in CG. When we don't, it's really important to try to find ways to ground it. And so we travel all over the world, you know, and we've gone to some really interesting, dense, out there locations in the rainforest, like in Daintree, for instance. One of our main locations, we shot some jungle footage out there. You know, it wasn't easy to get to, a couple hours from the hotel. You had to take a ferry over to this one part just to get to the location itself. But it was all worth it because, you know, anywhere we didn't have to, you know, use blue screen and stuff, it was important to take advantage of that. As an icon, Godzilla and King Kong has just persevered for so many years, and there's been so many incarnations of those characters. I think the fact that they're just not like super overexposed. It still takes, you know, quite a few years to make one of these movies because of the complexity of the special effects. So it kind of forces a spacing of the films, and I think that actually helps out a lot. I think that people need a break from things to get excited about them. And I think the MonsterVerse films, they've always had a different approach. I mean, you know, this is only the first time that there's been a director doing two in a row, but up until now, every director sort of had their own take and their own style that they brought to it. And I would say even the style I brought to this one's very different than the one I brought in Godzilla vs. Kong. And so I think that's kind of important in terms of keeping the whole series fresh, is there's always this new stylistic approach to the characters, and it's an exciting time to be a monster fan. I just want audiences to be able to, again, like I think the best way I can describe it is I want kids to feel like adults, and I want adults to feel like kids. I mean, that's sort of like my main focus when creating these. Is I'm the only audience I truly can relate to is myself, and the version of myself that I'm making this movie for is the inner 10-year-old in me. Now, the 10-year-old in me didn't necessarily want a kids movie either. You know, like when you're a 10-year-old, you don't, you know, like when something's made too much for kids, you don't like it. I mean, as a 10-year-old, I liked Godzilla movies, but I also liked the Terminator films and Aliens and movies I shouldn't have been watching when I was 10. And so, you know, like that's the line that we're trying to ride for me, you know, is I want to make something that, you know, can, you know, really allow kids to interface their imagination onto and all that stuff. But, you know, like it's not pandering to them either, you know, on either end of it. I don't want adults to feel like they're watching a kids movie, because it's not, but that's sort of the line, yeah. I think that's like the greatest advantage of having a character like Kong, is he's so human in his own ways. And so I think there's a lot of important lessons in terms of the emotional journey Kong's going through, and you know, and that's reflected in the human journey as well. Gia is going through a period of trying to figure out her place in the world and the people that she can relate to, and Kong's going through exactly the same thing on his own scale, you know, in Hollow Earth even. And so that's what's kind of interesting, is that the human story in these films, I think, are most effective when they don't always have to be butted up against the monsters, but thematically they need to reflect each other. And like you said, this film has a lot of really great messages about finding your place in the world, and and about overcoming loneliness and those kind of things.